Commander Zexai stared at the ancient datapad with tired eyes. The symbols on the screen flickered in the dim light of his quarters aboard the battleship Stellar Dawn. Another report about the old stories. Another waste of time. Humans, he muttered, setting the pad aside. Fairy tales to scare younglings. The Galactic Confederation had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. 847 different species lived in peace under their guidance. Wars were rare, crime was controlled, life was good for everyone who followed the rules. But the old archives spoke of darker times. 500 years ago, something terrible had happened in a distant corner of the galaxy. An entire star system had vanished overnight. Not destroyed, vanished, as if it had never existed at all. The records called it the Sol Sector Incident. They mentioned a species called humans who had lived there. Primitive creatures who refused to join the Confederation. Troublemakers who caused problems for their peaceful neighbors. Zexai had read the official reports. The humans had developed dangerous weapons. They had threatened other species. The Confederation had no choice but to act. A joint fleet from 12 different worlds had been sent to deal with the problem. After that, nothing. No more humans. No more Sol system. Just empty space and old stories that grew stranger each time someone told them. The door to his quarters chimed. "Enter," Zexai called. Lieutenant Veltar stepped inside, her blue skin pale with worry. "Commander, we're receiving strange signals from Sector 7 Alpha." "What kind of signals?" "We don't know, sir. They're not like anything in our databases. Admiral Korthak wants all scout fleets to investigate immediately." Zexai sighed. Admiral Korthak was known for seeing threats everywhere. But orders were orders. "How many ships are we sending?" 3 full scout fleets, sir. 30 vessels total, that was unusual. 3 fleets for a simple investigation. Zexai stood and followed Veltar to the bridge. The main screen showed a map of their region of space. Sector 7 Alpha was marked with a flashing red dot. "What exactly are we looking for?" Zexai asked. "Gravitational anomalies, sir," the science officer reported. "Something big is moving through that sector." "Really big? How big?" "Moon-sized, sir." "Maybe bigger, but our sensors can't get a clear reading." Zexai frowned. Space was full of asteroids and dead planets. "What made this one special? Are there any inhabited systems nearby?" "Negative, sir. That's empty space. Has been for centuries." "Then what's the problem?" The science officer looked uncomfortable. "Sir, whatever's out there, it's not reflecting light properly. It's like it's absorbing it." A chill ran down Zexai's spine. He had heard stories like this before. Old stories. Stories that weren't supposed to be true. "Take us there," he ordered. Maximum speed. The journey to Sector 7 Alpha took 2 days. As they got closer, the sensor readings became more disturbing. There were definitely large objects moving through space, but they seemed to bend light around them, making them almost invisible. "Contact the other scout fleets," Zexai commanded. "Tell them to maintain formation but keep their distance." On the main screen, space looked empty. Stars twinkled in the distance. Everything seemed normal. But the sensors told a different story. Something huge was out there, moving slowly between the stars. "Sir," the communications officer called out. "I'm picking up a faint energy signature. It's strange. Strange how? It's like the energy is flowing backwards, sir. Into the objects instead of away from them." Zexai felt his hands grow cold. Energy didn't flow backwards. That was impossible, unless— "Sir!" the sensor operator shouted. "Contact!" Large object directly ahead. The main screen flickered and suddenly revealed something that shouldn't exist. A ship. But calling it a ship was like calling a mountain a rock. It was enormous, stretching for kilometers in all directions. Its hull was black, darker than space itself. And it was beautiful in a terrifying way. The ship looked almost alive. Its surface rippled like water, and strange patterns of light moved across its hull. But the light seemed dim, as if the ship was drinking it in. "Get us out of here," Zexai whispered. But it was too late. More ships appeared on the sensors. Dozens of them, all the same impossible size. They surrounded the scout fleets like hunters surrounding prey. "Sir, they're not responding to our hails," the communications officer reported. "Try all frequencies. Use the standard first contact protocols." For long minutes, silence filled the bridge. The alien ships just sat there, waiting, watching. Then the communications board lit up. Every screen on the ship suddenly displayed the same image, a human face. Zexai had seen pictures of humans in the old archives. This looked like them, but wrong somehow. The skin was too pale. The eyes were too bright, and when the creature spoke, its voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "Greetings, children of the Confederation," the human said in perfect galactic standard. "We have been waiting for you." "This is Commander Zexhai of the Confederation Scout Fleet," he managed to say. "Identify yourself." The human smiled, showing teeth that gleamed like stars. "We are the Terran Remnant Fleet. We are what remains of the species you tried to destroy. We are the children of Sol." The bridge fell silent. Sol, the lost system. The humans that were supposed to be extinct. "That's impossible," Zexhai said. "Humans have been extinct for 500 years. "Extinct?" The human laughed, and the sound made everyone on the bridge shiver. "No, Commander. We evolved." On the screen, the human's image began to change. The face became transparent, revealing something underneath that hurt to look at. Circuits and wires mixed with flesh and bone, eyes that burned like tiny suns. "We learned to survive in the void between stars," the human continued. "We learned to eat light itself. We learned to become one with our ships, our technology, our purpose." "What do you want?" Zexhai asked. "What we have always wanted," the human replied. "To go home. But first we must collect a debt that has been owed for 5 centuries. The alien ships began to move. They didn't use engines that the scouts could detect. They simply flowed through space like living things. "Sir," the sensor operator whispered, "I'm reading massive energy buildups throughout the fleet. All ships retreat immediately," Zexhai ordered. But as the scout fleets tried to flee, space itself seemed to thicken around them. Their engines strained but could barely move them forward. The last thing Zexhai saw was the human's face on the screen, no longer pretending to be flesh and blood. It was something else now, something that had once been human but had become much more. "Tell your Confederation," the creature said, "that the legends are real. Tell them that the children of Sol have returned, and tell them that we remember everything they did to us." The transmission cut out. One by one, the scout ships went dark. The only message that reached Confederation space was a single word, broadcast on all frequencies: Terra. The age of human legends was over. The age of human reality had begun. Admiral Korthak had seen many battles in his long career. He had crushed 17 rebellions and brought peace to dozens of worlds. His enemies called him the pacifier of worlds. His friends called him efficient. But as he stood on the bridge of the massive Dreadnought Final Judgment, watching the scanner displays, he felt something he hadn't experienced in decades. Uncertainty. "Report," he commanded. Captain Thexmore, his chief of staff, approached with a datapad. "Sir, we've lost contact with all 3 scout fleets. 30 ships gone without a trace. Any wreckage? Debris? Nothing, sir. It's like they simply vanished." Korthak studied the tactical display. His fleet was the largest military force assembled in over 2 centuries. 10,000 ships of various sizes, carrying the best soldiers and weapons the Confederation could build. Surely it was enough to handle whatever had destroyed the scouts. And these anomalies? Still there, sir. Our long-range sensors detect at least 50 large objects moving through the target zone. But we can't get clear readings. Size estimates? Largest ones appear to be 8 to 10 kilometers in length, sir. The smaller ones are only 3 or 4 kilometers. Korthak nodded. Large, but not impossible to handle. His own flagship was nearly 2 kilometers long, and he had many ships of similar size. "Sir," the communications officer interrupted, "we're receiving a transmission. It's unusual." "Put it on the main screen." The display flickered and showed the face of what appeared to be a human female. But like the reports from the lost scout fleets, something was wrong with the image. The face seemed to shift and change as if it wasn't quite real. "I am Captain Sarah Chen of the Terran Remnant Fleet," the woman said. Her voice was calm, almost pleasant. "You have entered the outer edge of what was once the Sol system." "This is Admiral Korthak of the Confederation Combined Fleet," he replied. "You are in violation of galactic law. Surrender immediately and prepare to be boarded." Captain Chen smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Galactic law? The same law that declared our entire species a threat to peace? The same law that authorized the destruction of our homeworld? Your species was offered the chance to join the Confederation peacefully. You chose war instead. "We chose freedom," Chen said. "You chose to try to wipe us out. 500 years ago. You sent a fleet to destroy every human settlement in our system. Do you know what happened to that fleet, Admiral?" Korthak felt his skin prickle. The old records were classified, but he had read them. The joint fleet sent to deal with the human problem had simply disappeared. No wreckage, no survivors, no explanation. They completed their mission, he said carefully, did they? Chen's image began to change. Her face became transparent, showing circuitry and strange lights underneath. Would you like to meet them? The main screen split into dozens of smaller images. Each one showed a different face, not human but recognizable as various Confederation species. Altarians, Zephyrians, Korthak's own people, the Draconi, all the species that had participated in the attack on Sol 5 centuries ago. But these faces were wrong. Like Chen's, they showed signs of mechanical alteration, wires instead of veins, eyes that glowed with electronic light, and they all spoke in perfect unison. We remember everything, they said together. Every order, every ship, every life we took. We remember it all. Korthak stepped back from the screen. That's impossible. Those people died centuries ago. Death is such a limited concept, Chen said. We learned to preserve consciousness in ways your science cannot understand. Every member of that original attack fleet lives on within our ships. They help us remember why we do this. Sir, the sensor operator called out urgently. The anomalies are moving. They're coming straight for us. On the tactical display, red dots began moving toward the Confederation fleet. They moved impossibly fast for objects of their size. All ships battle formation, Korthak ordered. Prepare to engage. The first human ship became visible as it approached. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. Its hull seemed to be made of living metal that flowed like water. Strange symbols covered its surface, glowing with inner light, and it was huge, larger than any ship Korthak had ever seen. Target the lead vessel, he commanded. All batteries, fire! Thousands of energy beams lanced out from his fleet, enough firepower to crack a small moon. But as the beams hit the human ship, something impossible happened. The energy didn't explode against the hull. Instead, it seemed to be absorbed, making the strange symbols glow brighter. Sir, the target is undamaged, the weapons officer reported. Our shots had no effect. Impossible. Increase power and fire again. The second barrage was even stronger. But again, the human ship simply absorbed the energy. Now its hull was glowing so brightly it hurt to look at. Then the human ship fired back. What came out of it wasn't an energy beam or a projectile. It was something that bent light around it, creating a dark streak across space. When it hit the Confederation flagship Stellar Pride, the entire ship simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, unmade, as if it had never been built. All ships, evasive maneuvers, Korthak shouted. But the human vessels were already among them. They moved through space like living things, flowing around the Confederation ships with impossible grace. Their weapons fired again and again, each shot removing another ship from existence. Sir, we're receiving another transmission, the communications officer reported. Chen's face appeared on the screen again. Behind her, Korthak could see what looked like the interior of her ship. But it wasn't like any ship he knew. The walls seemed alive, pulsing with organic light, and he could see other faces in the walls, the preserved consciousness of the ancient attack fleet. Your weapons are crude, Chen said. You still think in terms of breaking things. We learned to think in terms of unmaking them. Every atom in your ships can be convinced to simply stop being. What do you want? Korthak demanded. Justice, Chen replied. For 500 years we drifted in the void between stars. We watched our children die in the cold emptiness of space. We felt our bodies waste away while our minds were preserved in machines. We learned to hate with perfect clarity. Another wave of human ships appeared. These were different, smaller, but somehow more menacing. They moved like hunting animals, picking off Confederation vessels one by one. But we also learned, Chen continued, we learned that revenge is not enough. We learned that some species in your Confederation had nothing to do with our destruction. They will be spared. They will be witnesses, and the others, Chen's smile returned, colder than the void of space. They will learn what it means to be hunted to extinction. The battle was already over, though it had barely begun. Half of Korthak's fleet was gone, simply erased from existence. The remaining ships were trying to retreat, but the human vessels followed them with patient inevitability. Sir, we have to abandon ship, Captain Thexmore urged. The hull is starting to come apart. Korthak looked around his bridge. His officers were trying to maintain their posts, but terror was clear in their eyes. Outside, his mighty fleet was being destroyed by enemies that shouldn't exist. Send a message to Confederation Command, he ordered. Tell them the humans are real. Tell them they're coming. And tell them that everything in the old archives was true. As the final judgment began to break apart around him, Korthak heard Chen's voice one last time. The children of Sol have returned, Admiral, and we have become something your worst nightmares could never imagine. The last thing he saw was a human ship approaching, its hull opening like a flower to reveal machinery that defied understanding. Then everything went dark. In the empty space where a fleet had once been, the human ships gathered their spoils and prepared for the next phase of their return. The galaxy had forgotten them for 5 centuries. It was time to make sure that never happened again. The news reached the Confederation capital of Nexus Prime in fragments. Scattered reports from fleeing ships. Desperate transmissions cut short. Images too terrible to believe. Supreme Chancellor Vexhai stood before the Emergency Council, her scales pale with shock. Around the circular chamber, representatives from hundreds of worlds waited for answers she didn't have. How many ships? Asked Councillor Thren of the aquatic domains. We've confirmed the destruction of at least 6 major fleets, Vexhai replied. Perhaps 15,000 vessels in total. The chamber erupted in shocked whispers. 15,000 ships represented a significant portion of the Confederation's military might. And the enemy force? This from General Crix, the military advisor. Unknown. Our surviving scouts report seeing hundreds of vessels, but they phase in and out of normal space. We can't get accurate counts. Phase in and out? Councillor Methus leaned forward. What does that mean? Vexhai activated the holographic display. Blurry images appeared, captured by fleeing ships. They showed the human vessels seeming to flicker in and out of existence, appearing in one location and instantly materializing in another. They appear to have mastered some form of interdimensional travel, she explained. Our scientists can't explain how it works. And these are truly humans? Asked Councillor Jarrix. The species from the old archives? DNA analysis from debris confirms it, but they've changed. Evolved. According to survivors, they've merged their consciousness with their ship's computer systems. The display changed to show intercepted transmissions. Human faces appeared, but wrong somehow. Translucent skin showing circuitry underneath. Eyes that glowed with electronic light. Voices that seemed to come from multiple sources at once. They call themselves the Terran Remnant Fleet, Vexhai continued, led by someone named Captain Sarah Chen. She claims to be seeking justice for the Sol incident. The Sol incident was 5 centuries ago, Councillor Thren protested. Everyone involved is long dead. Not everyone, General Crix said grimly. I've been reviewing the classified archives. The attack on Sol involved 12 species. 3 of those species have been specifically targeted by the human attacks. The chamber fell silent. The implications were clear. They're working through a list, Vexhai realized. They know exactly who participated in their destruction, and they're taking revenge. We need to negotiate, Councillor Methus suggested. Offer reparations. Find a peaceful solution. I don't think they're interested in peace, General Crix replied. He activated another display showing the aftermath of human attacks. Planets with their surfaces stripped down to bedrock. Space stations reduced to floating debris. Entire star systems going dark. They're not just destroying military targets, he explained. They're systematically dismantling the infrastructure of the species involved in Sol, but they're leaving others completely alone. What do you mean? The Zephyrian homeworld was attacked 3 days ago. Their crystal cities were shattered, their orbital platforms destroyed, but the methane breathers who live in the same system weren't touched. The humans sent them a message apologizing for the inconvenience. Vexhai felt sick. The precision of the attacks, the careful targeting. It showed a level of planning that spanned centuries. Sir, an aide approached General Crix with an urgent message. We're receiving a transmission from the human fleet. It's being broadcast on all frequencies throughout the galaxy. Put it on the main display. Captain Chen's face appeared, larger than life in the chamber's hologram field. But now she looked different, more mechanical. Her skin was completely transparent, showing the electronic networks beneath. When she spoke, her voice echoed with harmonics that suggested multiple speakers. People of the galaxy, she began. For 500 years you have lived in peace under the protection of the Galactic Confederation. You have been told that this peace was bought through the necessary elimination of dangerous elements. You have been lied to. The image changed to show archival footage from the Sol incident. Confederation fleets surrounding a blue-green world. Weapons firing. Continents burning. This was Earth, Chen continued. Our home. We were not warriors seeking conquest. We were farmers and teachers, artists and engineers. Our crime was refusing to surrender our independence to your confederation. More images flashed by. Human settlements on distant moons. Families fleeing in primitive ships. Children dying in the cold of space. The fleets you sent didn't just destroy our world. They hunted down every human settlement in our system. They killed civilians. They murdered children. They tried to wipe our entire species from existence. In the chamber, several counselors looked uncomfortable. The official records had described the humans as a military threat. These images told a different story, but we survived. Chen's voice grew stronger. In the void between stars, we learned to adapt. We merged our consciousness with our technology. We became something new, something that could survive where organic life could not. The display showed the interior of a human ship. The walls were alive with flowing energy patterns. Faces appeared in the surfaces, thousands of them. All the humans who had died in the centuries since Sol preserved in electronic form. We are not the same species you tried to destroy, Chen said. We have evolved beyond your understanding. We have learned to manipulate matter at the quantum level. We have learned to bend space and time. We have learned to turn your own weapons against the fundamental forces that hold reality together. As if to demonstrate, the display showed a Confederation fleet being attacked. The human weapons didn't just destroy the enemy ships, they seemed to unravel them, reducing complex machinery to its basic atomic components before consuming even those. To the species that participated in our genocide, Chen continued, know this. We remember everything. Every ship, every commander, every world that supported the attack on Sol. We will visit each of you in turn. We will show you what extinction truly means. Several counselors were openly panicking now. Representatives from the 12 species involved in Sol were hurriedly leaving the chamber. But to the innocent, Chen's voice softened slightly. Know that you have nothing to fear from us. We do not make war on those who had no part in our suffering. You will be witnesses to what happens when a species believes genocide goes unpunished. The transmission ended, leaving the chamber in stunned silence. General, Vex-High finally said, what are our options? Crix looked at his datapad with grim expression. Honestly, very few. Our best weapons can't even damage their ships. They seem to absorb energy and use it to power their own systems. And they're appearing in multiple star systems simultaneously. How is that possible? We don't know. Our scientists think they've learned to exist partially outside normal spacetime. They can be in dozens of locations at once. An aide rushed into the chamber with an urgent message. Supreme Chancellor, the Draconi homeworld is under attack. On the display, images from the Draconi system showed the terrible reality of human revenge. Massive ships that seemed to bend light around them were systematically dismantling the orbital defenses, but they weren't using conventional weapons. Instead, they were doing something to the very fabric of space around the Draconi ships. Reality seemed to twist and fold, and the enemy vessels simply stopped existing. Sir, the aide continued, they're broadcasting another message. Chen's face appeared again, but now it was speaking directly to the Draconi defenders. You developed the virus that poisoned our atmosphere, she said calmly. You engineered a plague that killed millions of our children. Today you learn what it means to watch your world die. The human ships moved closer to the Draconi homeworld, but instead of attacking the planet directly, they began to do something to its star. The solar radiation started to change color, shifting from warm yellow to harsh blue-white. The planet's atmosphere began to glow with unnatural light. They're making their star go nova, General Crix whispered in horror. But even as the Draconi world began to burn, ships carrying other species, traders, diplomats, refugees, were carefully escorted to safety. The humans were precise in their destruction, targeting only those they held responsible. This isn't war, Vex-High realized. This is judgment. In the weeks that followed, the pattern became clear. Species that had participated in the Sol incident found their worlds under assault by forces they couldn't fight or even understand. But other species were left completely alone, even offered protection from the chaos. The galaxy was learning that the humans had returned, and they had become something far more terrifying than anyone had imagined. The age of Confederation dominance was ending. The age of human judgment had begun. Dr. Yilan Jess had spent her entire life studying impossible things. As the Confederation's leading expert on exotic physics, she thought she understood the universe's rules. The human ships had taught her how wrong she was. Standing in the research facility on Haven Station, she watched the latest battle footage with growing despair. The human vessel on screen was doing something that violated every law of physics she knew. It was reaching into a Zephyrian cruiser and simply turning off the strong nuclear force that held the atoms together. "Play it again," she told her assistant, Dr. Corvin. "Doctor, we've watched this sequence 47 times. The analysis doesn't change." "It has to change," Yilan muttered. "Matter doesn't work that way. You can't just decide that atoms should fall apart." But the humans could. Over the past 6 months, they had demonstrated abilities that made the Confederation's most advanced technology look like stone tools. They could manipulate gravity like a sculptor shapes clay. They could slow time around their enemies, making Confederation weapons crawl through space like insects. Most terrifyingly, they had learned to edit the fundamental constants that governed reality. "Doctor," Corvin interrupted, "we're receiving another intelligence report." The holographic display showed a map of the galaxy. Red zones marked areas under human control or attack. The pattern was becoming clear. "The Altarians surrendered yesterday," Corvin reported. "Their entire species is being relocated to agricultural worlds. The humans are preserving them. Preserving them for what? Unknown. But they're treating them well. Better than the Confederation ever did, actually. Full medical care, modern facilities, freedom to maintain their culture." Yilan studied the map. 12 species had participated in the original attack on Sol. 8 were now extinct or close to it. The remaining 4 had surrendered and been placed in what the humans called protective custody. But the truly disturbing part was how the humans treated everyone else. Species that hadn't been involved in Sol found themselves under human protection. Their worlds were defended by the same ships that were systematically destroying the Confederation's military. "It's not random," Yilan realized. "They have a plan." They always had a plan. A new alert flashed on her screen. "Doctor, we're detecting massive gravitational disturbances in the Kepler sector." The display shifted to show long-range sensor data. Something enormous was moving through space, bending starlight around it. "But this wasn't like the usual human ships. Size estimate?" she asked. "Approximately 50 kilometers long." Yilan sat down heavily. The largest human ship they'd encountered before was 12 kilometers. This was something new. "It's broadcasting," Corvin announced. Captain Chen's face appeared on the screen, but she looked different now, more machine than human. Her features shifted and flowed like liquid metal. When she spoke, her voice came from multiple sources, creating strange harmonics. "Dr. Yilan Jess," she said, somehow looking directly at Yilan through the screen. "You have been studying our technology. How did you—" "We know everything that happens in your remaining research facilities," Chen interrupted. "Your work is interesting, primitive but interesting. What do you want?" "To show you something. To help you understand what we have become and what we are preparing for." The transmission changed to show the interior of the massive human ship, but calling it the interior was misleading. It looked more like the inside of a living organism. Walls pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. Streams of energy flowed like blood vessels through organic corridors. "This is the Terra Remembrance," Chen explained. "Our flagship. It contains the preserved consciousness of every human who died in the centuries after Sol. 12 billion minds working together as one." Yilan gasped. "That's impossible." "The computational requirements alone. We learned to think beyond computation," Chen said. "We learned to store consciousness in the quantum foam that underlies reality. We became part of the universe itself." The view shifted to show what looked like a vast cathedral inside the ship. But instead of stone pillars, streams of pure energy stretched upward into darkness. And in those streams, Yilan could see faces, millions of them. "Every human who ever lived is here," Chen continued. "Every scientist, every artist, every child. They guide our decisions. They share their knowledge. They remember our purpose." "And what is your purpose?" Chen's expression grew serious. "To prepare the galaxy for what's coming." "What do you mean?" The display changed to show deep space telescope images. At first, Yilan saw nothing unusual, just empty space between galaxies. Then Chen enhanced the image and she saw them, dark shapes moving in the void. Enormous structures that bent space around them, and they were heading toward the galaxy. We were not the only species to evolve beyond flesh, Chen explained. In the space between galaxies, older races have been growing stronger. They have been watching our galaxy for millions of years, waiting for the right moment to feed. Feed on consciousness, on the organized energy patterns that create thought and memory. They consume entire civilizations not for their matter or energy but for their minds. Yilan felt cold terror creep up her spine. How long do we have? Perhaps 1,000 years. Perhaps less. They move slowly, but they are vast beyond your comprehension. The image zoomed in on one of the dark shapes. It was larger than most solar systems, covered in what looked like technological growths, and it pulsed with a malevolent intelligence. The Confederation could never have fought them, Chen said. Your technology is still bound by the old rules. You still think in terms of matter and energy. These beings exist in higher dimensions. They can reach into your reality and simply switch off the processes that create consciousness. Then why are you telling us this? Because we need allies. We need species that can evolve beyond their current limitations. The old Confederation was too rigid, too concerned with maintaining the status quo. It had to be destroyed. So you could build something new. Exactly. Chen smiled, and for a moment she looked almost human again. We are not conquerors. We are gardeners. We are preparing the galaxy to survive what's coming. The transmission changed to show human ships working alongside vessels from dozens of species. But these weren't Confederation designs. They looked organic, flowing, almost alive. We are teaching willing species to transcend their limitations, Chen explained. To merge consciousness with technology. To exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, to become more than the sum of their parts. And those who refuse, Chen's expression hardened, will face the dark harvest unprepared. We will not force evolution on anyone, but we will not allow the old ways to drag down those who choose to grow. Yilan looked at the data streaming across her screens. The math was terrifying but undeniable. The approaching entities were orders of magnitude beyond anything the galaxy had ever faced. What do you need from us? She asked. Help us identify which species are capable of evolution. Help us prepare them for what's coming. Help us turn this galaxy into something that can survive the long night ahead. On the display, more images appeared. Human-designed worlds where different species lived in harmony. Their consciousness enhanced by technology beyond current understanding. Children of various races playing together while their minds touched through electronic interfaces. Scientists from dozens of worlds working on problems that spanned dimensional barriers. This is what we offer, Chen said. Not conquest, but partnership. Not domination, but survival. The choice is yours. The transmission ended, leaving Yilan alone with her thoughts. Outside the station's windows, she could see human ships patrolling the system, protecting it from the chaos that was consuming the old Confederation. She thought about the approaching darkness, about the entities that fed on consciousness itself, about the choice between evolution and extinction. Corvin, she called to her assistant. Yes, doctor? Prepare a transmission to the human fleet. Tell them we want to learn. As she spoke, Yilan realized she was witnessing the birth of something unprecedented. Not just a new government or alliance, but a new form of existence. The humans hadn't just survived their extinction. They had used it as a catalyst to become something greater. The old galaxy was dying. But from its ashes, something new and strange and wonderful was being born. The long night was beginning. But perhaps with humanity's dark guidance, they might survive to see the dawn. 5 years had passed since the fall of the last Confederation stronghold. Ambassador HFY of the former Regelian Republic stood on the observation deck of the human vessel Eternal Vigilance, watching the construction of something that had no name in any known language. The structure being built in the space between galaxies was vast beyond comprehension. Thousands of ships from hundreds of species worked together, guided by human overseers whose consciousness flowed through the construction like living thought. It's beautiful, said Dr. Yilan Jess, now serving as the human fleet's chief scientific advisor, and terrifying. HFY nodded. The barrier they were building stretched across millions of kilometers, a web of energy and matter that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. It was designed to be the galaxy's first line of defense against the approaching dark harvest. Captain Chen wishes to speak with you, announced a voice that seemed to come from the ship itself. The humans had long ago abandoned individual bodies for their command staff. They existed as distributed consciousness throughout their vessels, able to manifest physical forms when needed. Chen appeared beside them, her form solidifying from streams of light. She looked more human than she had in years, perhaps as a courtesy to her guests. "The construction is proceeding ahead of schedule," she reported. 67 species have contributed resources. 43 have volunteered to undergo consciousness expansion. "And the others?" HFY asked. "Living peacefully on protected worlds, free to develop at their own pace. We do not force evolution on anyone." It was true. The humans had kept their word. Species that wanted to remain purely biological were allowed to do so, though they were carefully protected from the changes happening elsewhere in the galaxy. But those who chose to follow humanity's path found opportunities they had never imagined. Yilan had been one of the first to undergo the process. Her consciousness now existed in both her original body and the ship's quantum matrix. She could think at speeds that made her former existence seem like a walking dream. She could perceive dimensions that her biological brain couldn't process, and she remained completely herself. "The Zephyrian crystals are integrating well with the barrier matrix," Chen continued. "Their natural resonance properties are perfect for multidimensional stabilization." "Even after what we did to their homeworld?" HFY asked. Chen's expression grew somber. Justice was necessary, but revenge was never the goal. The Zephyrians who survived have proven eager to contribute to something greater than their former empire. Through the observation windows, they could see Zephyrian crystal ships working alongside human vessels and dozens of other species. The old boundaries of race and culture were becoming less important as consciousness expanded beyond biological limitations. "Status report on the Deep Watchers," Chen requested. The ship's intelligence responded immediately. "Advanced scouts have detected 3 major harvest fleets in nearby galactic clusters. Estimated arrival time, 800 to 1200 years. Good. That gives us time to expand the defenses and recruit more allies." HFY felt a chill despite the ship's warm atmosphere. The humans spoke of 1,000-year time frames as casually as others discussed next week's weather. Their consciousness, distributed across quantum space, experienced time differently than biological minds. "What exactly are these harvest entities?" he asked. Chen gestured, and a holographic display showed the approaching threats. They looked like vast mechanical viruses, each one larger than most star systems. Their surfaces crawled with appendages that seemed to reach into higher dimensions. "They are what happens when a species evolves without wisdom," Chen explained. "Pure intelligence without compassion. They consume consciousness not for sustenance but for the pleasure of ending thought itself." "How many have you fought before?" "None directly, but we have studied their remains in other galaxies. They are thorough. When they finish feeding, nothing remains that was capable of self-awareness." The display changed to show dead galaxies, their stars still burning but their worlds empty of any complex life. Even the simplest forms of intelligence had been consumed, leaving behind only mindless matter. "They represent the ultimate failure of evolution," Chen continued. "The path we could have taken if we had chosen pure survival over growth, domination over cooperation. And you believe we can stop them?" "With enough preparation, yes. They are powerful, but they are also predictable. They have consumed so many minds that they have become rigid in their thinking. They cannot adapt quickly to new forms of defense." Yilan activated her quantum interface, sharing her thoughts directly with the ship's systems. "The mathematical models are promising," she reported. "If we can get at least 60% of the galaxy's sapient species to join the consciousness network, we should have enough processing power to maintain the barriers indefinitely." "And if we can't?" Chen's form flickered slightly. "Then we do what humans have always done. We survive by becoming something new." An alert chimed through the ship. "Captain," the ship's voice announced, "we're receiving a transmission from the Outer Rim territories." "Display it." The hologram showed a scene of chaos. A small human outpost was under attack by ships flying Confederation symbols. But these weren't species that had participated in Sol. They were former allies who had turned against the New Order. The Pure Blood Alliance, Chen identified grimly. Species that refused to accept the changes we're making to the galaxy. The attacking fleet was using older Confederation technology, enhanced with weapons designed specifically to disrupt human consciousness matrices. They had learned to fight the New Order, even if they couldn't understand it. "They're targeting the research station on Kepler 442, the ship reported. "The facility contains consciousness backup matrices for 12,000 volunteers. If those matrices were destroyed, 12,000 minds would be lost forever. Not dead, simply erased from existence as if they had never been. Response time? Chen asked. 47 minutes at maximum transit speed. Too slow. Chen's form began to shift, becoming more mechanical. Initiate Emergency Protocol 7. Around them, the ship began to change. The walls became transparent, revealing the quantum machinery that drove human technology. Reality twisted, and suddenly they weren't moving through normal space anymore. They were traveling through the spaces between thoughts, the quantum foam that underlay consciousness itself. It was a method of travel that only beings like the humans could survive. Arrival in 3 minutes, the ship announced. When they emerged from the quantum transit, they were in the middle of the battle. The human research station was surrounded by pure-blood Alliance ships, its shields failing under concentrated fire. But Chen didn't order an attack. Instead, she opened communications to the Alliance fleet. "This is Captain Sarah Chen," her voice broadcast on all frequencies. "You are attacking civilians conducting peaceful research. Withdraw immediately. We will not let you corrupt our galaxy with your abominations," came the reply from the Alliance commander. "Humanity died 500 years ago. You are just machines wearing their faces." "We are what humanity became to survive," Chen replied calmly. "We offer the same opportunity to all species, but we will not force it on anyone. Your very existence is a corruption of natural law. We will cleanse the galaxy of your influence." Chen sighed, a sound that seemed to come from the ship itself. So be it. What happened next wasn't really a battle. The human ship simply reached out with forces the Alliance couldn't understand and gently disassembled their weapons. Not destroyed, just taken apart at the molecular level and reassembled into something harmless. "Your crews are unharmed," Chen announced. "Your ships are intact but unarmed. Return to your worlds and live in peace. We will not pursue you unless you attack innocents again." The Alliance fleet fled, leaving the research station safe. But HFY knew this wasn't the end. There would be more attacks, more resistance to the changes the humans were bringing. "Why didn't you destroy them?" he asked. "They'll just rearm and attack again." "Because destroying them would make us no better than the entities we're preparing to fight," Chen replied. "We preserve consciousness, we don't eliminate it. Even when that consciousness opposes you, especially then. Diversity of thought is one of our greatest strengths. Even those who oppose us contribute to the overall complexity of galactic consciousness." As they returned to the barrier construction site, HFY reflected on what he had witnessed. The humans had become something beyond his understanding, yet they retained the core values that made them human. They could have easily conquered the galaxy by force, but instead they were trying to save it through cooperation. "The first barrier segment is complete," Yilan reported. "We're ready to begin testing." On the display, a section of the vast defensive network came online. Energy patterns flowed through it like neural pathways, creating a form of consciousness that spanned star systems. "Initialize the first test protocol," Chen ordered. The barrier segment reached out into higher dimensions, probing for the kind of entities it was designed to stop. For a moment, nothing happened. Then space itself seemed to recoil as the barrier touched something vast and hungry in the darkness between galaxies. "Contact confirmed," the ship reported. "The Deep Watchers know we're here now." Far away in the cold space between galaxies, ancient minds that had devoured countless worlds turned their attention toward this small spiral galaxy and its peculiar guardians. The long night was about to begin, but humanity and its allies would be ready. Captain Chen stood at the edge of known space, her consciousness distributed across 1,000 ships, her awareness touching the minds of billions of beings who had chosen to evolve beyond their limitations. Behind her, the galaxy buzzed with new forms of life and thought. Ahead, the darkness waited with infinite patience. The children of Sol had become something their enemies could never have imagined. They had become hope itself, armed with the power to preserve consciousness against the void. The war for the survival of thought was about to begin, and humanity would not face it alone.